Last night, I spent the evening until the very small hours of the morning at a dinner of foreign ministers from the P5, the Permanent Five of the United Nations, working on the difficult but very important issue of Iran. And in between the exchange of texts, and let me say the exchange of liquor as well, I reflected on the fact that I was going to come here in support of Kofi, and how, for all the knocks that the UN receives, we would literally be nowhere as an international community. There would be no international community without the vision and imagination that those who, in the aftermath of the worst ever war, the vision and imagination that the architects of the UN had had, and then the way in which this organization has been nurtured and cared for by successive generations. At the World Summit last year, we agreed a program of reform of the UN that would make it an even more effective organization. We have to maintain that momentum. This means ensuring that the recently created Peacebuilding Commission becomes an effective body, and it means establishing a Human Rights Council which avoids the weaknesses of the existing Commission. Modernising the administration will dominate the agenda for the first half of 2006. And in particular, we look forward to the Secretary-General's imminent recommendations on how we should reprioritise programme activity across the organisation. At the same time, we need to strengthen the international consensus in support of the non-proliferation regime and against the threat of global terrorism. There's still a lot more we have to do if we're to meet the Millennium Development Goals. And in Africa, progress is further threatened by continuing conflicts such as those in Darfur and the Great Lakes, and the worsening situations like those on the borders between Eritrea and Ethiopia, and in respect of the Ivory Coast. Earlier today, to take another UN and Security Council dossier, Kofi co-chaired with the Afghan and British governments the London Conference on Afghanistan. The United Nations has done great work here, absolutely fundamental work, and has a key role in coordinating international support. The same is true in Iraq, where without the work of Kofi, the UN, and some very courageous and extraordinarily energetic UN civil servants, I'll mention one, Carlos Valenzuela, who got the original electoral machinery going in Iraq against all the odds. That first election would not have taken place, actually a year ago yesterday, and then the referendum couldn't have taken place, and the successful 70% turnout election, also successful, could not have taken place on December the 15th. And let me say that I know the UN has some very legitimate security and other concerns, but I hope that the coming year we'll be able to see the Iraqi people, particularly those outside Baghdad, being able to benefit even more from the organization's immense expertise and experience. So there's some tough work ahead, and work which I know Kofi will go into in more detail. But in this, Kofi's your final year of office, Kofi can be sure of the support of the United Kingdom and of our continuing strong commitment to the United Nations itself. It's a support which can be measured in the levels of our assessed and voluntary contributions to the UN budget, significantly more than any other European country, and double what we were contributing a decade ago. But it can also be measured in our constructive engagement with the United Nations agenda across the board. I hope we can act as strong advocates for reform precisely because we know that the world needs a robust and effective United Nations. And in the foundations which Kofi has laid over the past 9 years, the Secretary-General has given every reason for great confidence in the future. It is, ladies and gentlemen, my very great privilege to introduce Kofi Annan, Secretary-General of the United Nations.